just must have, I don't know what's going on. I think maybe it qualified it whenever it splits the, like the ecology stuff from the ACT stuff.
Yeah. But, so, I'm gonna be taking notes on my computer and my hand, okay?
Got you.
So, today we are going to jump into, IOD 501, and it's comparing, or combining data from two or more simple sets of data presentation. And so on the assessment that we were just looking at, the scholars did not master that skill at all, or that standard.
Yeah.
Okay? But on looking at IOD 301, the scholars mastered the percentage of that standard at 38%. So for IOD 501, we're gonna do our know and our show.
Okay.
And we're gonna take 1 minute to jot down what scholars should know and show us when working through IOD 501, okay?
Okay. Which question specifically is it?
Hold on 1 second. This one right here.
Got it. Know and show. I'm just gonna, since I have this pulled up, I'll just make notes.
Take about 10 more seconds. Okay, you ready? Okay, so now, looking at our know and show, right? So, go ahead and share out, and as you are sharing out, I am going to be annotating my notes.
Got it.
For what I have within the document.
Cool, so I said how to read the charts, how to pull information from the charts, what the chart's actually representing. I said that they would need to know how to use the data in the chart and estimate values in the chart.
Okay, you can show first.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Definitely, so for my no, I put independent
Yeah.
variable, dependent variable, and then not only like labeling, like knowing, like they need to know what is manipulated in the experiment, because that is the specific question that they'll be asked when they are assessed, and then what is measured in the experiment. And something we had in common was what is the question asking, specific, which data set should we be looking at to compare or combine?
Data set should we use. Got it. Okay.
And then for my do, I had identified appropriate data points from multiple sets of data or multiple tables and figures. And then I had compared more than one data presentation. So if I'm taking something from table one, comparing it to table two, or if I'm taking something from table one and combining it from table two.
Got it.
And then I said label the purpose, the variables, trends, and tools.
Yep.
Okay? So now looking at question number two, when we look at question number two, we're going to look at this, and I want us to just we're going to take a minute to look at question two, and then identify what scholars should be looking for or doing for question two. Okay? Go ahead, share out for me.
So they need to be able to understand that they're looking at experiment 2, that they're pulling data from soil type 2, and that it's soil type 2, but pesticide A.
Yes.
But also the 20 parts per million that was used in experiment 2, like it isn't a 20 parts per million. It's between 15 and 25.
So that's the point, okay? So you said what isn't present?
The 20.
The 20. And the question reads what?
It wants to know what the average weight would be in soil type 2 if they used 20.
If they use 20, right?
Right, so it's okay.
So they have to make a what?
They have to make an estimate. They have to estimate and interpolate what's going to happen.
Even more, like making an inference.
Oh, yeah, making an inference. You're right.
Yes, okay? So making an inference using the data from 2 sets of data, right? So you said what isn't present in the chart?
The pesticide dosage.
So now, if we look at, no scholars mastered this
Right.
IOD 501. Compare and combine simple sets of data. This is a very simple set of data, right?
Yeah.
You just have to look in multiple places.
Yep.
So after seeing this and knowing no one mastered it, and then knowing that they mastered IOD 304, right? They didn't master it to the full 80%, but 38% of scholars mastered IOD 304, but IOD 304 came after IOD 501.
That's crazy.
Okay? So thinking about them being able to know that the values of the variable change with IOD 304 and comparing it to IOD 501, the gap is where?
It's in the being able to interpret it, right? So like if it's explicitly stated, they can do it.
Yes.
If it's not explicitly stated, they can't.
So scholars are not able to make a what?
Inference.
Inference. So we named the gap, right?
Yep.
So since we named the gap and scholars are not able to make an inference. So I went a little bit deeper into the data. So I looked at Craig Caldwell's he got the correct answer for IOD 304 and didn't get the correct answer for IOD 501,
Okay.
right? So he's able to identify what's present, but not make an inference for what is present, for what isn't present. So since we've named that gap, and so scholars are not able to make an inference, but identify the data. Question?
No, I'm mad, sorry.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I'm just like that, to me, that, I mean, I guess that makes sense, that they can, if it's there, they can say it,
Mhm.
but they can't do it when they have to estimate.
Yes. So now naming that, right? So
Mhm.
stamping that scholars are not able to do what?
Inference, make an inference.
Make an inference. We're going to now go into planning to reteach.
So then I need to make I need to make sure that I'm putting in front of them specific passages that require them to make an inference.
Yes. And so thinking about the passages that you would pull, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you do a model or guided discourse? And
I
why?
would do guided discourse.
Okay.
I would do guided discourse because it makes, like, if I model it for them, I don't think it's going to stand, because I feel like I think, like, we've gone over the answers, we've talked about what we need to do.
Mhm.
I think that, like, a guided discourse would be better. I don't actually, but then I don't know, because, like, nobody mastered it, so then is anybody gonna have the right answer?
Mhm. So I would push not to have a guided discourse.
Okay.
Right, because you want to kind of like have, this is the scholar who identified such and such, and this is the scholar, like, what is the difference between these two
The two
pieces
of
of work,
them.
right?
Yep.
And so with IOD 501, we don't have those two, right? But for IOD 304, we do, right? Because we have
Mhm.
scholars who've mastered it and who did not master it. So I would push for a model.
Got it.
Okay, and it's only, and I'm gonna explain why. So if you model, and if I can use this one right here. So if I'm modeling, so you don't even have to go into naming the independent, dependent variable.
Because they know that.
Because they know that. We don't have to go into modeling, picking information from a table or chart, because they know that. They've mastered that portion of IOD 304.
Mhm.
Now the focus is the inference piece,
Mhm.
right? And so through the model, I want you to think about the thinking, thoughts, and process that you will model for the scholars
Got it.
as you are working through this one particular question,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I want you to think about the conceptual process
Mm-hmm.
and then the computational process, because these are numbers, and scholars have to do another step with the numbers.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I think, like, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it's doable. I think that planning the think aloud would be, like, the biggest piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I want to make sure that I'm asking myself the right type of questions that they should be asking themselves,
Yes.
right? Like whether something increases or decreases, whether it, what's the trend on what I see.
Mhm. So I would even push you not even to say what is increasing, what is decreasing, or even the trends, right? Because this is not something that we're gonna spend like 30 minutes on. This is gonna be like straight up a 7 to 10 minute situation, right?
Okay.
So go back to the question.
Yep.
And so if you look at the question, what should you, and I'm gonna give you time to plan your reteach, and we can spar after, but I want you to look at the question and then see specifically how you should break down the question so scholars know what they're looking for.
Oh, okay. So I would, okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna plan a reteach together, well,
Gotcha.
separate, and then come back together.
Mhm.
And then, like, kind of spar with each other,
Okay.
okay? Question?
Nope.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead. Actually, I'll give you 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm breaking this down for students, I would have them first annotate the question, looking at the 3 pieces of information. So 20 parts per million, in experiment 2, soil type 2. I would ask them, okay, so where will we be looking in our data, like our table? I'd have them say, okay, so then I'd be eliciting, like, we're looking at experiment 2, soil type 2. Okay, great. So go to experiment 2. Experiment 2 is here. Table 2 is here. And I'd say, okay, circle soil type 2. So then they would circle soil type 2. So we're looking in this section. Okay, so in this section, what are we looking at specifically? Oh, I forgot to have them do pesticide A. So we're looking only at pesticide A. So then I would have them focus their attention on here. And I'd say, okay, so then what, we're manipulating the parts per million, and we're looking for how many parts per million? And they would say 20. And I'd say, great, so here's the deal. If we're looking for 20 parts per million, do you see 20 here? No. So,
Go ahead.
So we don't see 20. Okay, so then what do we need to do in order to, like, in order to use 20, if we have to find 20? So they go, okay, well, we go in between. Great, we're gonna look in between. Our 2 numbers are right there. So these are our range that we can use to decide whether or not, yeah, so this is our range that we need to use to figure out our answer. So then I would literally have them eliminate based on that range, which would give them the answer.
Okay. Can I
Oh,
give
God.
you mine?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Sorry. Sorry.
God, no. Okay. Great job. Great job. Thank you for sharing that. So in mine, so I'm gonna just pick up where ours is different.
Okay, sounds good.
So when I am looking at, so I know I have to have 20 parts per million.
Yeah.
So what numbers am I going to look at to identify 20 parts per million?
These.
I'm talking to the scholars, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they say, well, 20 parts per million is not on the table.
Right.
These are my thinking thoughts. Oh my God, what numbers can I look at to see what the answer is if I'm looking for 20 parts per million? 20 parts per million is not on this chart. So I have to look at numbers that are between, that number is between.
Okay.
I'm going to identify these 2 numbers. Okay? When I identify these 2 numbers, then I'm going to go over to soil type 2, pesticide A. So if I'm looking between 15 and 20 parts per million, I need to be looking at pesticide A between 40.3 and 31.1. And then the kids are probably gonna have an aha moment. Oh, and then it's like me and my thoughts. Oh, listen, we have to do some math here because that number isn't present. So we must make an inference.
Stay